At the bank, my daughter pushed a pen at me. "Just sign, Mom." Her husband's hand gripped my shoulder so tightly that it hurt. I forced a smile, slipped a folded note across the counter to the cashier, and prayed she would understand. Help. Not my choice. They both smiled for the camera as if it were a normal day, but the bank manager suddenly locked the door, and in that moment, everything changed forever. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much more intense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Let me explain how a sweet old grandmother like me ended up slipping desperate notes to strangers. Because 3 months ago, I was just Helen Parker, 67 years old, recently widowed, living quietly in my small house in Portland, Oregon. I had my garden, my book club, and what I thought was a caring family. I couldn't have been more wrong. It began slowly, almost gently. My daughter Emily called me one Tuesday morning, her voice soaked in concern. "Mom, we're worried about you living alone. What if something happens?" Behind her words, I heard her husband Mark clear his throat, almost like he was feeding her the lines. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I told her while watering my petunias. "Mrs. Davis next door checks on me every day, and I have my medical alert bracelet." "That's not enough anymore, Mom," Emily insisted. "You're getting older. It's time we make some adjustments." Adjustments. Such a harmless-sounding word, but in their mouths, it was the beginning of a trap. Over the next few weeks, Emily and Mark started visiting more often. They'd bring dinner, sit at my table with those sympathetic faces, and ask all kinds of questions about my life. My finances. My medicines. My daily routines. Mark wandered around my house, making notes on his phone about rugs on the floor or my step stool as if my own home had suddenly turned into a danger zone. "We just want what's best for you," Emily would say, patting my hand in that same tone she used to calm her children when they were toddlers. At first, I believed her. But the first red flag came when Mark suggested I should simplify my banking. "All these accounts, Mom," he said, flipping through my statements with a frown. "It's so complicated. What if you make a mistake?" I wanted to laugh. I'd managed money for nearly 50 years, even handled the books for my late husband's contracting business. Yet now, because I had turned 65, they treated me as if I were suddenly incompetent. The real trouble began the day they brought documents. Emily laid a stack of official-looking papers in front of me, little sticky notes marking where I should sign. "It's just a precaution," she explained softly. "A power of attorney so we can help if something ever happens." I set the papers aside. "I'll have my lawyer look at these first." Her smile faltered. Mark's jaw tightened. The air in the room grew cold. "Mom, don't you trust us?" Emily asked, pretending to be hurt. Of course I trusted them. They were my daughter and son-in-law. They had 3 children I adored. Mark had a steady job at an insurance company, and Emily was a schoolteacher. They were respectable adults. That was my mistake. I thought respectability meant honesty. After that, the pressure began. Emily started calling me twice a day, always hinting at my supposed decline. "Mom, you forgot Ben's soccer game last week," she'd say. But I hadn't forgotten. They never told me about it. Another time, she claimed a neighbor mentioned I looked confused at the grocery store, though I had never even spoken to that neighbor. Mark played a different game. He brought me printouts from the internet about senior fraud, accidents at home, memory loss. He'd shake his head and say, "I'm not saying this will happen to you, Helen, but statistics show." The way he said my name, like a teacher scolding a child, made my blood boil. Then one morning, something terrifying happened. I found my pill organizer completely mixed up. Tuesday's pills in Friday's slot. Vitamins where my prescription should be. I'd taken the same medicine for years, never once made such a mistake. When I called Emily, shaken and confused, she sighed dramatically. "Oh, Mom, this is exactly what we've been worried about. What if you overdosed?" I stared at the little plastic box, certain I hadn't messed it up. Yet her words planted a seed of doubt. Was I slipping? Was I losing my mind? That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through my quiet house, checking every lock, rereading every bill, making sure everything was in place. Everything was perfect. Balanced checkbook. Clean counters. Organized drawers. My mind felt sharper than ever. But Emily's words haunted me. What if you overdosed? The very next morning, Mark showed up unannounced. I was in the neighborhood, he claimed, though his office was a 20-minute drive away. Emily asked me to check on you after yesterday's scare. He strolled through my kitchen, opening cabinets, scanning my fridge as if I were some helpless child who couldn't be trusted with milk. Then I caught him photographing my pill bottles with his phone. What are you doing? I asked. Just keeping track, he said smoothly. Emily worries. She asked me to document your prescriptions. Document, track, organize. Their words were starting to sound less like care and more like surveillance. That afternoon, I called Robert King, my lawyer of 15 years. Robert, I need you to review some documents Emily and Mark want me to sign. What kind of documents? Power of attorney papers. And Robert, I think I need more than legal advice. I think I need protection. The silence on the other end told me everything. Come in tomorrow morning, he said firmly. And Helen, don't sign anything. When I hung up, I caught sight of my reflection in the hallway mirror. My silver hair was neat, my eyes clear, my face lined with years of living but still strong. This wasn't the face of a woman in decline. This was the face of a woman finally waking up to the truth about her own family. Robert's office felt like the first safe place I had stepped into in weeks. His warm handshake, the steady calm in his eyes. It reminded me that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. I wasn't confused. I was simply being cornered by people I loved the most. He spread the documents across his mahogany desk, flipping through them carefully. His brow furrowed deeper with every page. Helen, he said finally, choosing his words with care, these aren't standard power of attorney papers. These would give Emily and Mark full control over your bank accounts, your house, your medical decisions. They could even put you into a care facility without asking your permission. His words hit me like a punch to the chest. But they said it was just a precaution, I whispered. Robert leaned forward. This is predatory elder abuse, Helen. It's more common than you think. And the fact that they pressured you to sign without legal review, that's a massive red flag. My hands trembled as I remembered Mark photographing my prescriptions. Emily's voice making me doubt my memory. The pill organizer mysteriously shuffled. They're building a case against me, aren't they? It looks that way, Robert admitted. Have there been any witnesses to your supposed confusion? Or is it always just their word? Always just them, I said, my voice shaking. Private conversations. Comments no one else could hear. They're trying to make me believe I'm losing my mind. Robert nodded, scribbling notes. Here's what we're going to do. First, you'll write down everything. Every strange moment, every time they try to undermine you. Second, we'll arrange for a full cognitive evaluation to prove your competence. Third, we'll create protections, an ironclad trust, proper power of attorney, safeguards for your assets. For the first time in weeks, I felt lighter. But fear still clawed at me. How long will this take? 2 to 3 weeks, Robert replied. But Helen, you can't let them know what we're doing. If they suspect you're preparing defenses, they might move faster. That night, I sat in my garden, staring at my roses. Deep red, climbing up the wooden trellis Tom and I had built years ago. I had tended those roses for 23 years, just as I had nurtured my relationship with Emily. When had my daughter stopped seeing me as her mother and started seeing me as a burden? When had love turned into leverage? My phone rang right on schedule. Emily's evening check-in. Hi, sweetie, I said, forcing my voice to sound calm. Mom, how are you feeling? Any more confusion with your medications? No, I replied, watching a hummingbird hover by the feeder, its wings moving so fast they blurred. Small, delicate, yet completely in control. Everything's fine. Good, Emily said quickly. Mark and I were thinking of coming over this weekend. Maybe we can help you organize your financial papers, make sure everything's in order. That's thoughtful, but I can manage. Silence stretched on the line. Then Emily's voice softened, a rehearsed gentleness creeping in. Mom, it would be helpful. Mark has experience with this kind of thing through work. Through work? I almost laughed. Mark sold insurance policies. He wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't an accountant. He was just a man who had decided he knew better than me how my life should be run. We'll see, I said. We've already planned it, she replied quickly. Saturday morning. I'll bring bagels. Planned. Not asked. Not offered. Decided. I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. Whatever they were preparing, Saturday was the day. After we hung up, I dialed Robert's emergency number with shaky fingers. They're coming Saturday, I whispered when he picked up. I think it's about to happen. Saturday arrived with a clear autumn sky, the kind of morning that makes the world feel fresh and alive. But I felt none of it. My stomach churned as I carefully gathered my documents, just as Robert had instructed, and locked them in my bedroom safe. At 9 sharp, Emily and Mark walked in. Emily carrying a bag of bagels, Mark holding a leather portfolio that looked too official for a casual family visit. My grandchildren, sweet Anna, 12, and the twins, Sam and Noah, just 9, ran to me, wrapping me in hugs. Grandma, can we pick apples? Anna asked, her face glowing with excitement. Of course, darling, I said, kissing the top of her head. Go on, the trees are full. As the children ran into the backyard, laughter trailing behind them, I turned back to see Mark spreading papers across my dining table like a man preparing for war. Mom, Emily began, unwrapping bagels as though it were an ordinary morning. We brought those papers again. We really think you should reconsider. I poured coffee, my hand steady despite my pounding heart. I told you, I want my lawyer to review them first. Mark smiled, but it wasn't kind. Helen, lawyers are expensive. These are standard forms. I even had them reviewed at my company's legal department. His company. The same people who wrote contracts designed to pay out the least. My lips pressed into a thin line. Even so, I prefer to wait. Emily's eyes flicked to Mark. A silent exchange. Then he opened his portfolio again. Actually, we brought something new today. Banking forms. To add our names to your accounts. Just as backup signatories. I froze. Backup? No. These weren't backup. They were joint holder forms. They would have full access to my money, without even telling me. Why would you need access to my accounts? I asked, my voice careful. In case of emergency, Emily said quickly. If you're in the hospital, bills need to be paid. I have autopay. Online banking. Mark leaned forward, his voice pressing like a weight on my chest. What if you have a stroke? What if you can't communicate? Someone has to take care of things. What if? What if? What if? Every question designed to make me feel weak. Vulnerable. Helpless. These forms require notarization, I said flatly. Mark smiled again. We thought of that. My friend Mike is a notary. He's meeting us at First National Bank at 11 o'clock. They had arranged everything. The timing. The place. The notary. I wasn't supposed to have a choice. And if I don't want to do this? I asked. Emily's face crumpled into a mask of fake pain. Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be. We're trying to help you. Harder than it had to be. As if my refusal to hand them control over my life was just me being stubborn. I glanced toward the window, where my grandchildren's laughter drifted in with the autumn breeze. Their joy was real. Innocent. And it made the knife in my heart twist deeper. Okay, I heard myself say, the word almost foreign on my tongue. We can go to the bank. Emily's relief was instant. Mark's eyes lit with triumph. But inside, something hard and steady began to burn. They thought I had surrendered. They thought they had won. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The ride to the bank felt nothing like an ordinary Saturday drive. Mark's SUV rolled down the quiet streets, but inside the car it was heavy, like the air itself knew what was about to happen. I sat in the back seat, pressed against the cool leather, watching familiar houses blur past my window. Emily sat in front, chattering nervously about the weather, the traffic, how the leaves were turning early this year. Not once did she mention where we were going or what we were about to do. It was almost as if she wanted to drown the truth under small talk. I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach forward, grab her shoulders, and ask, "What are you doing, Emily? How did we get here?" But my voice stayed trapped inside me. If I said too much, They would sense I was resisting again. And I couldn't afford that. Not yet. When we pulled into the parking lot of First National Bank, my stomach turned so violently I thought I might be sick. The building stood there, ordinary and calm, but to me it looked like a courthouse. Like the place where I would be stripped of my freedom. Inside, a thin man in an expensive suit was already waiting. Mark introduced him quickly. "Mom, this is Mike. He's a notary." Mike's handshake was too firm, his smile too wide. I saw no warmth in his eyes. Only calculation. A woman named Patricia Chen, the bank manager, led us into a small private office. She was serious but professional, her sharp eyes darting between us. Mark spread the papers on her desk with the precision of a man setting a trap. "Now then," Patricia began, scanning the documents. "You'd like to add joint account holders to all of Mrs. Parker's accounts?" "That's right," Mark answered before I could speak. "It's just for emergencies." Patricia turned her gaze directly to me. "Mrs. Parker, do you understand that joint holders will have full access? They'll be able to withdraw money, make transfers, even close accounts without your permission." "She understands," Emily interrupted quickly, her smile tight. "We've explained it all." But Patricia didn't look away from me. "I need to hear it from Mrs. Parker herself. Helen, are you comfortable giving them complete control?" Her eyes, steady and unflinching, felt like a lifeline. My heart pounded so loud I was sure everyone in the room could hear it. This was my chance. My only chance. I glanced at Emily's hopeful face, Mark's confident smirk, Mike's watch glinting under the fluorescent light. They expected hesitation. They needed me to look frail, unsure, incapable. And if I gave them that, maybe I could buy myself time. I suppose it's necessary," I murmured, letting my voice waver. Patricia frowned slightly. "You don't sound convinced. Would you like more time to consider?" "No," Mark cut in quickly, his patience cracking. "She's just tired. It's been a stressful morning." I lowered my eyes to the desk, pretending to fiddle with my purse. My fingers slipped a folded note into Patricia's hand while Mark was busy scrolling on his phone. The words I had written were short, shaky, desperate. "Help. Not my choice." Patricia's face didn't change, but her eyes flickered with understanding. "Mr. and Mrs. Johnson," she said calmly, "would you mind stepping outside for a moment? I need to conduct some verification procedures with Mrs. Parker privately." Mark's head jerked up. "What kind of verification?" "Standard protocol," Patricia replied smoothly. "It'll just take a few minutes." Emily hesitated, worry flashing across her face. "Mom, are you sure you'll be okay?" "I'll be fine," I said, my voice firmer now that a sliver of hope had entered the room. As soon as the door closed behind them, Patricia leaned in. "Mrs. Parker, your note suggests you're being pressured. Is that true?" "Yes," I whispered, the relief flooding me so fast I almost cried. "They've been pushing me for weeks. I didn't want to come here." Patricia nodded, her tone steady but kind. "I'm required to report suspected elder abuse. Would you like me to do that?" "Yes." "But they can't know yet," I begged. "I'm working with my lawyer. I need time." "Understood." She pulled out a different stack of forms. "Here's what we'll do. We'll process their request to avoid suspicion, but I'll place monitoring flags on your accounts. Any unusual activity will trigger an alert. And I'll make a note in your file that this was done under duress." Tears stung my eyes. For the first time in weeks, someone believed me. Someone saw me not as a frail old woman, but as a person in danger. When she opened the door to call Emily and Mark back in, her expression was perfectly neutral. "Everything is in order. We just need notarization." Mike stepped forward, pulling out his seal, but Patricia held up her hand. "One more time, Mrs. Parker. Do you want to proceed?" I forced myself to nod. "Yes. Let's get it over with." But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Patricia subtly angle her phone on the desk. She was recording, gathering evidence, protecting me in ways Emily and Mark could never imagine. As I signed, Mark squeezed my shoulder so hard it made me wince, then flashed a smile at Patricia's camera. "There we go, Mom. Now we can take better care of you. Take care of me, or take care of my money." When it was all finished, Patricia handed me her card discreetly. Please call me if you have any questions about your accounts. Any questions at all. I tucked it deep into my purse, my lifeline hidden among tissues and old receipts. The drive home was nothing like the one that brought us there. Emily and Mark were jubilant, laughing about how much easier life would be now. They spoke as if I were already gone, as if my independence had been an inconvenience finally dealt with. "Mom, you're so quiet," Emily said, turning in her seat. "Are you okay?" "Just tired," I replied softly. And it wasn't entirely a lie. My bones ached, my chest felt heavy. But inside, there was no defeat. There was determination. Because they thought they had won. But they had only lit a fire inside me. And soon, they would realize they had underestimated me. The woman who raised a daughter, ran a household, and managed a life long before they ever knew what responsibility meant. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at the pile of papers Emily and Mark had insisted I sign. My hands rested on the table, but they felt heavy, as though every page carried the weight of my freedom being chipped away. Outside, the apple tree swayed gently in the autumn breeze, a few leaves scattering across the lawn. The children had picked apples earlier, their laughter still echoing faintly in my memory. That innocence was real. But everything else about the day felt poisoned. I picked up Patricia's business card, running my thumb over the embossed letters. Just knowing I had it gave me strength. I wasn't powerless. Not yet. I dialed Robert's number. He answered on the second ring. "Robert, it's me," I whispered. "They made me sign." "What?" "Helen, I told you not to." "I had to," I interrupted. Patricia, the bank manager, she recorded everything. She slipped protections into place. "We have evidence now." The silence on the other end lasted only a second, but it felt like forever. Then Robert's voice softened. "You're braver than I realized. But Helen, this means they now have access to your money. We can't waste time." "I know," I said, my chest tightening. "What do we do next?" "First thing Monday, you come to my office. We'll move your assets, set up a trust, and start paperwork for a restraining order. Until then, don't let them suspect anything." When I hung up, I glanced toward the hallway mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't the same woman I had seen a week ago. Her eyes were sharper now, filled not with fear, but with something else. Resolve. The next few days, I played my role carefully. When Emily called, I let her chatter about bagels and autumn festivals as though nothing had happened. When Mark stopped by, just to check in, I smiled politely, offering coffee I never drank myself. Every word I spoke was measured, every gesture calm. Let them think I was beaten. Let them believe I was the frail old woman they wanted me to be. By Monday morning, I was sitting in Robert's office at 8 sharp, clutching Patricia's card like a lifeline. He already had a stack of documents waiting. "Here's what we're doing," he explained, sliding papers toward me. "We're creating an irrevocable trust for your assets. We're drafting a new power of attorney in your terms, not theirs. And we're filing for a restraining order. This is how we take back control." As I signed each paper, my heart pounded with both fear and relief. For weeks, I had felt like prey. Now, for the first time, I felt like someone preparing for a fight. Robert looked up. "Have you checked your accounts?" I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I opened my banking app. My balance was there, but something was off. A line item caught my eye. $5,000, transferred out just the day before. To Emily and Mark's account. My breath hitched. "They've already started." Robert's jaw tightened. "That's theft, Helen. Plain and simple." I clenched my fists. My own daughter. My own flesh and blood. Robert scribbled a note. "Don't panic. With Patricia's recording and the elder abuse report, we can prove this. But you need to be cautious. If they sense you're pushing back, they'll escalate. And fast." I swallowed hard, thinking of Emily's soft voice when she said, "Mom, don't you trust us?" Thinking of Mark's firm grip on my shoulder at the bank. They weren't going to stop. Not now. That evening, I sat in my garden, the sun setting behind my apple trees. A few apples lay bruised on the grass, forgotten by the children. They looked so perfect hanging from the branches just days ago, and now they were spoiled on the ground. I felt the same way. Once cherished, now discarded. My phone buzzed, a text from Emily. Thanks for today, Mom. You made the right choice. Love you. Love. The word twisted in my chest. Did she even know what it meant anymore? Love wasn't manipulation disguised as care. Love wasn't making someone surrender their dignity in the name of protection. I closed my phone and whispered into the cool evening air, "You'll regret underestimating me." The next morning, the phone rang again. Emily's voice was sweet, rehearsed. "Hi, Mom. How are you? Did you sleep well?" "Yes," I replied evenly. "That's good. Mark and I were talking. We think it's time you move somewhere safer. We found the perfect assisted living place. Sunset Manor. It's beautiful. You'd love it." "I'm not moving anywhere, Emily." A pause, then a sigh. "Mom, after Saturday, it's obvious. You seemed so confused at the bank, so unsure. We're worried about your judgment." I sat straighter in my chair. I was unsure because I didn't want to be there. Not because I couldn't make decisions. She ignored my words. "Don't worry, we already put down a deposit. You can move in next weekend." Next weekend. They had used my money, to lock me into a future I didn't choose. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Emily, I am not moving." Her voice softened again, false concern dripping like honey hiding poison. "Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be. The decision's already made. Not by me. By them. About me." When I hung up, Robert was already taking notes, his face grim. "They're accelerating, Helen. They're trying to control everything. Your finances, your living situation, your choices. You have days, maybe less, before they try to move you." I sat back in my chair, trembling. My own daughter had drawn the line in the sand. She thought she had won. But she was about to learn what a mother will do when her back is against the wall. By Wednesday, the pressure became unbearable. My phone rang almost every 2 hours. Sometimes it was Emily, sometimes Mark, and other times relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Each one had the same rehearsed tone, concern dressed up as kindness, but underneath it was control. "Mom, have you thought about Sunset Manor?" Emily would ask sweetly. "You'll love it there, Helen," an aunt I barely remembered chimed in. "It's for the best," Mark's sister Linda said when she showed up on my porch holding a casserole dish like it was a peace offering. I watched her set the dish on my counter and sit down as though she belonged in my living room. Helen, she corrected herself quickly. "This isn't easy. But Emily and Mark are doing what's best for everyone. My friend's mother lives at Sunset Manor, and she's so much happier. No worries, no stress." "No freedom," I muttered under my breath. "What was that?" "Nothing." I straightened. "Linda, do you think I'm incompetent?" Her eyes widened at my bluntness. "Of course not. But you're at a different stage of life now. It's natural to need help. And what if I told you I don't want their help?" She gave me a pitying smile that made my blood boil. "Sometimes we don't want what's best for us. That's why we need family to make the right choices for us." I felt my fists tighten in my lap. The circular logic was infuriating. My refusal to accept their help became proof that I needed it. No matter what I said, they twisted it. That night, Patricia called. Her voice was firm, professional, but laced with concern. "Helen, there's been suspicious activity on your accounts. A $15,000 transfer for something labeled facility deposit, and another $8,000 for care coordination fees." My chest went cold. "That's $23,000. "Yes. And I'm afraid it's already processed. Because of their joint access, legally, they were able to move it. I've flagged the transactions, but you need to act quickly." I pressed my hand against my forehead, dizzy with anger. "They're trying to trap me, Patricia. They want me in that place before I can stop them. Then you need to get your assets out of those accounts immediately. Tonight, if possible." After she hung up, I sat in the dark, my house silent except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Every tick felt like a warning. Time was running out. Then the doorbell rang. I froze, staring through the peephole. Mark stood on the porch with 2 men I didn't recognize. One carried a clipboard, the other looked like security. My blood turned to ice. They rang again, louder this time. Then knocking. Heavy. Insistent. Helen, Mark's voice called. Too smooth, too practiced. We know you're in there. We need to talk. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. After 10 minutes, they left, their car pulling away slowly. But the message was clear. The game was over. The pretending was finished. They weren't just asking anymore. They were threatening. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called Robert. They just came. With strangers. It felt like a warning. Pack a bag, he said firmly. You're staying at my guest house tonight. Tomorrow we execute everything. Court orders. Freezes. Trusts. No more waiting. My voice cracked. Won't it look like I'm running away? No, Robert said. It'll look like you're protecting yourself. And that's exactly what you need to do. The next morning, I walked into First National Bank not as a confused old woman, but as a fighter. At my side was Robert, calm and steady. Patricia was waiting, her eyes sharp with determination. And behind us, a police officer followed quietly, a silent guardian in uniform. Emily and Mark were already there. They looked smug, confident, as though the world was finally bending to their will. But the moment they saw the stack of papers Robert carried, their smiles faltered. What's this? Mark asked, his voice clipped. This, Robert said, laying down the documents with precision, is a restraining order preventing you from harassing Mrs. Parker. And this is a court order freezing the accounts you've been illegally accessing. Emily's face drained of color. Mom, what have you done? I've protected myself from thieves, I answered, my voice steady, strong. Thieves. Emily's voice rose, almost hysterical. We're your family. We were helping you. You stole $23,000 from my accounts, I shot back. Money I never gave you permission to touch. Mark stepped forward aggressively, but the officer moved between us, his hand firm. Sir, step back. Mark sneered. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying. Look at her. Does she seem competent to you? The officer looked at me carefully. My back was straight, my words were clear, my lawyer at my side. She seems more competent than you right now, he said flatly. Patricia spread new documents across the table, her voice steady but sharp. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, these accounts are now frozen. Any attempt to access them will result in criminal charges. Criminal charges? Emily whispered, her voice breaking. Elder financial abuse is a felony in Oregon, Robert said calmly. 5 years in prison. Mark's confident mask cracked. Wait. We were trying to help. She seemed confused. You confused her on purpose, Robert snapped, his voice firm. You rearranged her medications. You gaslit her. You pressured her. That's not care. That's abuse. Patricia's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. And we can prove it. I recorded your entire conversation at the bank. Including Helen's note for help. Including the moment you gripped her shoulder hard enough to hurt. For the first time, Mark looked rattled. Truly rattled. Emily's eyes filled with tears. Mom, please, she cried softly. We don't need lawyers and police. We're family. I looked at her, the daughter I had once cradled in my arms, the little girl who used to cling to me when she was scared of thunderstorms. My voice trembled, but it carried strength. Family doesn't treat me like property. Family doesn't steal from me. Family doesn't lock me away because it's easier for them. The silence that followed was heavy, final. For the first time they realized they had lost control. And I realized I had just taken it back. The silence after that confrontation at the bank clung to me for days. For the first time in months, my phone didn't buzz every few hours. No surprise visits. No one telling me I was fragile, confused, or irresponsible. My home, once filled with tension, was finally quiet. It should have felt like peace. And in some ways it did. I could walk into my kitchen without fearing someone would criticize how I stored milk. I could water my roses without imagining Emily's voice whispering that I wasn't safe. But the quiet also gave me space to feel the truth. My own daughter had tried to strip me of everything that made me me. Robert kept me busy in the days that followed. He guided me through trust documents, revised power of attorney papers, and financial protections so strong even the most determined manipulator couldn't break through. Patricia checked in often too. Sometimes it was business, alerts on my accounts, updates on the abuse report. But sometimes it was just kindness. She'd ask if I was eating enough, if I was getting rest. In those moments, I felt more cared for by a stranger than by my own child. But the hardest part wasn't the legal work. It was the emptiness where my family used to be. I would catch myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a call from Emily about the children's school play or Anna's piano recital. Instead, the silence reminded me of the wedge they had driven between us. Then, one Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. Emily's voice. Soft. Practiced. "Mom, please. I know you're angry, but I miss you. The kids miss you. I'm sorry if we pushed too hard. We were scared. Scared of losing you the way we lost Dad. Please call me back." Her words were crafted carefully, apologetic without admitting guilt, emotional without taking responsibility. It was manipulation, but gentler now. A different kind of trap. I didn't call back. The following week, Mark showed up at my doorstep. I didn't open the door, but I watched through the peephole. He paced back and forth, frustration written all over his face. Then he slipped a folded note under my door before walking away. When I picked it up, my stomach knotted. "Helen, this has gone on long enough. We made mistakes, but we're family. Sarah is heartbroken. The kids don't understand why their grandma won't see them. Don't let lawyers destroy our relationship." I sank into a chair, clutching the paper. His words cut deeper than I wanted them to. The kids. They had nothing to do with this. They were innocent. They didn't deserve to lose me because of their parents' greed. That evening, I called Robert. "What if I want to see my grandchildren?" His voice was cautious. "Supervised visits are possible. But Helen, be careful. They'll use the children as leverage to pull you back under their control." I knew he was right. But the thought of Anna's smile, of Sam and Noah tugging at my hands, calling me grandma, it was unbearable to imagine never seeing them again. So I made a decision that surprised even me. I called Emily. Her voice answered on the first ring, breathless and eager. "Mom, I want to see the children," I said, my tone firm. "Of course. We can all come over." No, my interruption was sharp. "I'll meet them at the park. Saturday. 2:00. You can drop them off and pick them up 2 hours later." There was a pause, long and heavy. Then her voice softened. "Mom, that's not necessary. We can." "Those are my terms," I said, my patience gone. "Take them or leave them." Another pause. Finally. "Okay. We'll be there." But I knew her too well. She and Mark wouldn't accept boundaries without testing them. They would see Saturday as an opportunity to worm their way back in. Saturday came with crisp October air, the kind of golden light Portland is famous for. I arrived at Laurelhurst Park early, choosing a picnic table with my back against a tree and a clear view of the path. Robert had insisted I carry a small recording device, and Patricia had given me her personal number in case I needed immediate help. At exactly 2:00, Mark's SUV pulled up. The children spilled out, racing toward me with pure joy. "Grandma!" Anna shouted, throwing her arms around me. "I missed you so much. Mom said you were sick, but you look fine." My throat tightened. "I'm perfectly well, sweetheart. I missed you too." The twins showed me their new school photos, chattered about Halloween costumes, argued over which candy was best. Their innocence was a balm I hadn't realized I needed. For one sweet hour, it was as though nothing else mattered. But I could feel Emily's presence lingering. She hovered nearby, waiting, watching, hoping. Finally she approached, her expression carefully balanced between hurt and hope. "Mom, they've really missed you. We all have. Can't we move past this?" I looked at her, studying every line of her face. For a moment, I almost saw the little girl who used to curl up in my lap during thunderstorms. But then I remembered the cold determination in her eyes at the bank. "What mistakes do you think you made, Emily?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward Mark, who gave a subtle nod. "We were overly concerned. Maybe we pushed too hard about the assisted living thing." The assisted living thing. She made it sound like a minor misunderstanding instead of a calculated betrayal. "What else?" I pressed. "Well, The bank accounts were just a precaution. Maybe it wasn't necessary yet. Yet, my heart sank. They hadn't changed. They were only waiting for a better time. Emily, I said softly, but firmly. Do you think stealing $23,000 from me was a mistake? Or a crime? Her composure cracked. We didn't steal anything. That money was for your care. Care I didn't want. At a place I never agreed to go. Mark stepped closer, his voice hard. Enough. This act is getting old. We're your family. We have every right to be concerned about your welfare. And I have every right to decide what my welfare requires, I shot back. His eyes narrowed. Do you? Because from where I stand, you look like a lonely old woman manipulated by lawyers and bankers into destroying her own family. The children froze mid-game, sensing the tension. Anna's face clouded with worry. I took a deep breath, my voice calm but cutting. You think my refusal to be controlled is proof that I need to be controlled. You think my independence is evidence of incompetence. You don't see me as a person anymore. You see me as an obstacle. Emily's tears spilled. Mom, I love you. I just want to take care of you. No, I said firmly, my voice trembling but strong. You want me taken care of. That's not the same thing. I stood, gathering my purse. Anna, Sam, Noah, I love you all very much. You can call me any time you like. But I won't spend time with your parents until they learn I'm not their property. Mark's voice snapped like a whip. You can't turn our children against us. I'm not turning them against anyone, I said, my voice steady as I walked away. I'm showing them what self-respect looks like. As I reached my car, I heard Emily's desperate call behind me. Mom, please don't do this to our family. I turned one last time, my heart breaking but my resolve unshaken. I didn't do this to our family, Emily. You did. The moment you decided I was too old to deserve dignity. 6 months passed after that day at the park. 6 long months where I tried to piece myself back together. My house was quieter than ever. No phone buzzing every hour, no footsteps of uninvited visitors, no forced check-ins pretending to be love. For the first time in years, my thoughts belonged only to me. I filled my mornings with simple things that reminded me who I was. Reading with my book club, pruning the roses Tom and I planted decades ago, baking pies just for myself. At first, the silence was heavy, pressing down on me like a punishment. But slowly it became freedom. Robert continued to guide me, making sure every financial crack had been sealed. Patricia, bless her, became more than a bank manager. She became a friend. Sometimes she'd stop by after work just to share a cup of tea, listening quietly while I poured out my hurt. She never judged me. She never told me I was dramatic. She simply listened. And that, more than anything, healed me. But pain has a way of sneaking in when you least expect it. Sometimes late at night, I'd find myself wondering if Anna still practiced her piano, if Sam still collected those silly trading cards, if Noah still laughed at his own knock-knock jokes. They were pieces of me too, and losing them felt like losing a part of my soul. Then, one crisp morning, a letter arrived in my mailbox. My heart stopped when I saw Emily's handwriting. For a moment, I debated throwing it away unopened. But curiosity, mixed with something dangerously close to hope, made me tear it open. Dear Mom, it began. Her words were shaky but different. Not defensive. Not manipulative. Honest, or at least trying to be. I've been in therapy since our confrontation at the park. Dr. Williams has helped me realize things about myself I don't like very much. I was so scared of losing you the way I lost Dad that I tried to control everything. What I called love was really fear. What I called care was really control. I had to stop reading for a moment. My vision blurred as tears welled up. For months I had begged inside my heart for her to just see what she was doing. And here, in ink, she admitted it. I know I don't deserve your trust right now. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want to try to become the daughter you deserve. Not the one who tried to make you into the mother I wanted you to be. 3 pages. 3 pages of confession, regret, and the faintest glimmer of something I thought had died, sincerity. I set the letter down, staring at it with trembling hands. Words were easy. Promises were easy. I had learned that the hard way. It would take actions, consistent, humble actions, for me to believe her again. But even with all my caution, something stirred inside me that I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that my daughter could rediscover the love that had been buried under greed and fear. Hope that my grandchildren might grow up seeing that age brought wisdom, not weakness. The following weeks, I found myself speaking up more with others my age. At church, at the book club, even with Mrs. Davis next door. And what I learned shook me to my core. I wasn't the only one. Mrs. Davis admitted her son had pressured her to sign over her house, for tax purposes. Dorothy, a friend from book club, confessed her daughter had tried to push her into a nursing home she didn't need. Margaret from church told me she had already lost her savings after her grandson convinced her she had dementia. It's an epidemic, Dorothy said one afternoon over coffee, her voice heavy. They think once we turn 65, we stop being capable. We stop being people. The worst part, Margaret added softly, is how they make us feel guilty for wanting independence. Like self-determination is selfish at our age. We sat there, a circle of women who had lived long enough to raise families, bury loved ones, survive losses. And yet here we were, all treated like burdens instead of the pillars we had once been. That night, I wrote in my journal. They underestimated the wrong generation. We may be older, but we are not done. I didn't call Emily. I didn't reply to her letter. Not yet. She had to earn her way back. But for the first time in a long time, I closed my eyes and slept with something steady in my chest. Not fear. Not anger. Hope. And maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of healing. Weeks passed after Emily's letter, and though I didn't answer, her words haunted me. Every time I sat at the kitchen table with my tea, I'd see the letter folded neatly on the counter. I must have read it a dozen times, searching between the lines for lies, for the old manipulation, for any hint that this was another trick. But it wasn't the words that mattered anymore. It was what came next. Actions. One chilly Saturday morning, as I was clipping dead blooms from my roses, the phone rang. I recognized Emily's number but let it go to voicemail. A minute later, I listened. Mom. I know you don't trust me yet. I don't blame you. But the kids keep asking about you. Anna's piano recital is next week, and she cried last night because she wanted you there. Sam made a drawing of you and taped it above his bed. Noah. He tells knock-knock jokes into the air, hoping you'll hear them. Please, Mom. Don't punish them for my mistakes. Her voice cracked at the end, raw and trembling. I gripped the phone, my heart aching. Punish them? That was never my intention. The children were the only innocent ones in this entire mess. But I knew Emily. She was using them because she knew they were my weak spot. Still, the thought of my grandchildren missing me was unbearable. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the old house creak. My heart pulled in two directions. One voice said, "Stay strong. Don't let her pull you back." Another whispered, "They're just children. They need you." By Sunday evening, I made up my mind. I would see them. But on my terms. On Monday, I called Emily. She answered in a rush, as if she had been waiting by the phone. "Mom. I want to see the children," I said, keeping my tone even. "Oh, thank God. We'll bring them over this weekend. I'll cook, we'll." No, my interruption was firm. "I'll meet them at Laurelhurst Park. Saturday, 2 o'clock. You and Mark can drop them off and pick them up 2 hours later." There was silence. Then Emily's voice softened. "Mom, that's not necessary. We can all." "Those are my terms," I said coldly. "Take them or leave them." After a long pause, she whispered, "Okay. We'll be there." Saturday arrived with that perfect kind of fall weather. Crisp air, golden leaves scattering across the grass, families out walking dogs and children riding bikes. I chose the same picnic table as before, the one with my back against the tree. This time, I carried more than my purse. Robert had insisted I bring a small recording device, and Patricia had told me to keep her number ready. At exactly 2, Mark's SUV pulled up. My heart swelled as the children spilled out, running to me with unfiltered joy. "Grandma!" Anna cried, throwing herself into my arms. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too, sweetheart," I said, hugging her tightly. Sam and Noah each grabbed a hand, tugging me toward the playground, their chatter filling my ears with pure happiness. For the next hour, I was simply grandma again. We played tag, shared cookies I'd baked that morning, and laughed until my sides hurt. For that brief time, the ugliness of the past months faded away. But of course it couldn't last. Emily approached, her eyes red as though she had been crying. She sat across from me, hands clasped together. Mom, they really need you. We all do. Can't we move past this? I looked at her carefully. What mistakes do you think you made, Emily? She glanced back at Mark, who lingered nearby, arms crossed. His silent nod urged her on. We were too controlling. Maybe we pushed too hard about the assisted living place. The assisted living place. She spoke of it as if it had been a small misunderstanding, not a carefully plotted betrayal. And the bank. I pressed. Her jaw tightened. That was just a precaution. Maybe we rushed things. Rushed things. My voice trembled with restrained anger. You stole $23,000 from me. Money I never agreed to give you. Was that a rush too? Emily's mask cracked, tears spilling down her cheeks. We didn't steal. That money was for your care. Care I didn't want, I snapped. At a place I never chose. Mark stepped closer, his tone sharp. Enough. This victim act is tiring. We're your family. We had every right to step in. I turned my head slowly, meeting his glare. And I have every right to decide how I live. My money. My choices. My life. He scoffed. You? You're just an old woman, lonely and confused, manipulated by lawyers who want your money. The words stabbed me, but they didn't weaken me. They fueled me. Confused. I repeated, my voice steady but shaking with anger. No, Mark. You're the confused one. You think my independence is a weakness. You think my refusal to surrender means I'm broken. But it means I'm stronger than you'll ever be. Emily's tears fell harder. Mom, I love you. I just want to take care of you. I shook my head slowly. No. Emily. You want me taken care of. There's a difference. Love doesn't chain someone. Love sets them free. The children had stopped playing, their little faces worried. My heart twisted, but I couldn't let them see me bend. Not now. I stood, gathering my purse. Anna, Sam, Noah. I love you more than anything. You can call me any time, but I won't spend time with your parents until they understand I'm not their property. Mark's voice rang out behind me, harsh and bitter. You can't turn them against us. I turned back one last time, meeting his glare. I'm not turning them against you. I'm showing them what self-respect looks like. As I walked to my car, Emily's voice broke across the crisp autumn air. Mom, please, don't do this to our family. I turned, my eyes burning with both love and pain. I didn't do this to our family, Emily. You did. The moment you decided I was too old to deserve dignity. After that day in the park, I thought the storm might finally settle. Emily's tears, Mark's bitter threats, my firm refusal. I believed it had drawn a line they wouldn't dare cross again. For a little while, life slipped back into quiet normalcy. My roses bloomed late that year, defying the frost, and I took comfort in their stubbornness. They reminded me of myself. But peace rarely lasts when people like Emily and Mark are involved. One Tuesday morning, as I sipped my tea, the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw two strangers on my porch. They wore crisp suits and carried clipboards. My stomach sank even before I opened the door. Mrs. Parker? One of them asked politely. We're from Adult Protective Services. We've received a report that you may no longer be capable of handling your finances safely. We're here for a welfare check. For a moment, the room tilted. I steadied myself against the doorframe. Emily. It had to be Emily. I forced my voice steady. Please come in. They looked around my home, making notes. One asked questions. What day it was, what bills I had paid recently, how I managed my groceries. I answered each one calmly, my heart pounding. This wasn't just an intrusion. This was another attempt to strip me of control. When they left, promising to follow up, I collapsed into my chair. My hands shook so badly I could barely dial Robert's number. They've escalated, he said grimly when I told him. They're trying to declare you incompetent. Helen, this is serious. The thought chilled me. If they succeeded, everything, my money, my home, even my medical decisions, could be taken from me. That night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Emily's face, hearing her soft voice twisting concern into chains. We're just trying to help, Mom. By Friday, I was sitting in Robert's office again. He spread out papers across the desk, his expression firm. We'll fight this. You're competent, and we have proof. Patricia's recording, the financial logs, your clean bill of health from Dr. Myers. But Helen, you need to be prepared. They won't stop until they have total control. I looked down at my trembling hands. Why, Robert? Why would my own daughter do this? He sighed, leaning back. Fear. Greed. Sometimes both. She wants security for herself, and she's convinced herself it's for your good. It's easier to justify betrayal when you convince yourself it's love. His words cut deep. I wanted to hate Emily. But I couldn't. Hate would have been easier. Instead, all I felt was grief, for the little girl I had raised, for the bond we had once shared, for the woman she had become. The court hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Those days crawled by, heavy with dread. Every time the phone rang, I jumped. Every knock at the door sent my heart racing. I felt hunted in my own home. The night before the hearing, I sat at the kitchen table with my journal. The house was quiet, the clock ticking softly in the background. I thought about Tom, how he used to sit across from me, steady and reassuring. If he were here, he would have taken my hand and said, Helen, you've faced harder storms. You'll get through this too. I closed my eyes, whispering into the stillness, I hope I'm strong enough. The next morning, the courthouse loomed above me like a fortress. Robert walked at my side, calm and confident. Patricia was already inside, holding a thick folder of evidence. When we entered the courtroom, I saw Emily sitting with Mark at the opposite table. She looked fragile, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. For a moment, I almost believed she was still my little girl. But then she lifted her head, and our eyes met. Behind the nervousness, there was determination. A cold kind of resolve that told me she was ready to take everything. The judge entered, and the proceedings began. Emily's lawyer painted a picture of me as a confused, vulnerable woman, forgetful, easily misled, incapable of managing my affairs. Each word felt like a dagger. Then it was Robert's turn. He called Patricia to the stand. Calmly, she described the events at the bank. The pressure, the shoulder grip, the note I slipped her. She explained the suspicious transfers, the flagged accounts, the attempts to corner me into signing everything away. The recording was played aloud. Emily's sweet manipulative voice, Mark's firm insistence, my whispered plea for help. The courtroom fell silent. When I was called to testify, my legs trembled as I stood. But when I opened my mouth, the words flowed like steel. I may be old, I said, my voice steady, but I am not incompetent. I pay my bills. I manage my home. I choose my life. What my daughter and her husband tried to do wasn't care. It was control. It was theft. It was betrayal. Emily's tears spilled, but I didn't look away. I held her gaze until she dropped her eyes. By the time the judge adjourned, my heart was pounding. No decision had been announced yet. It would come later. But as I walked out of that courtroom, I felt something I hadn't in months. Strength. No matter what the outcome, I had stood up for myself. I had spoken my truth. And for once, Emily couldn't twist my words. 2 weeks after the hearing, the letter from the court arrived. My hands shook as I tore it open, Robert sitting across from me in my living room, Patricia quietly sipping tea at my kitchen table. The words swam for a moment before they came into focus. Petition denied. Mrs. Helen Parker retains full legal capacity over her affairs. Financial abuse charges under review. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The paper slipped from my hands, and a laugh, half sob, half relief, escaped my throat. Robert picked up the letter, smiling softly. You did it, Helen. You won. Patricia leaned forward, her eyes warm. Not just for yourself. For everyone who has ever been told they're too old to matter. But victory didn't feel like gloating. It felt heavy, like surviving a storm. My house was safe, my money secure, my choices still my own, but my heart? That was another matter. A week later, Emily showed up at my door. Alone. Her face was pale, her shoulders slumped. For the first time in years, she didn't look like the strong-willed woman who demanded control. She looked like a lost child again. "Mom," she whispered. I stood in the doorway, unsure whether to let her in. Memories flashed, her tiny hand clutching mine at the first day of school, her laughter echoing through this same hallway, her voice at the bank saying, "Don't you trust us, Mom?" "What do you want, Emily?" I asked quietly. Her lips trembled. "To say I'm sorry. Truly." I don't know what came over me. I was so afraid of losing you, of being left with nothing when you're gone, that I tried to hold on too tightly. I hurt you. I betrayed you. I became everything I swore I never would. I studied her, searching her face for the lies I had grown used to. But for once, there were none. Just raw regret. "Sorry doesn't fix the damage," I said softly. "Sorry doesn't give back the nights I cried, or the trust you broke, or the dignity you tried to steal." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But I want to try. I want to be better. For you. For the kids." Silence hung between us, heavy and fragile. Part of me longed to slam the door, to protect myself from more heartbreak. But another part, the mother part, the part that had loved her since the moment she was placed in my arms, whispered something else. Give her a chance. One last chance. I stepped aside. "Come in." She entered slowly, like someone stepping into holy ground. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she once pressured me to sign away my life. Now, her hands shook as she reached across it, not to take but to ask. "Will you let me earn your trust again?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. Trust isn't rebuilt in a day. But I placed my hand over hers, not as forgiveness, but as permission to try. The weeks that followed were different. Emily didn't push. She didn't demand. She came over quietly, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to sit in the garden with me. She let the children call whenever they wanted, their voices filling my evenings with laughter again. It wasn't perfect. The scars were still there. But for the first time, I felt like maybe healing was possible. Not because she wanted control, but because she wanted connection. And in that fragile peace, I learned something I wish every older person could understand. Aging doesn't make you weak. Dependence doesn't mean incompetence. Our worth doesn't vanish with our youth. If anything, it deepens. We are not burdens. We are not property. We are not children again simply because our hair turns silver. We are people. With dignity. With choices. With voices that deserve to be heard. The true betrayal isn't when age makes the body falter. It's when family mistakes love for ownership. And the greatest act of love is not control. It's respect. So if anyone ever tells you you're too old to decide for yourself, remember my story. Remember the courtroom where I stood and proved them wrong. Remember the roses that bloomed against the frost, stubborn and alive. And remember this. Dignity is not a gift someone else gives you. It is yours by right. And no one, not even your own blood, has the power to take it away unless you let them. That was the lesson I carried, the one I wanted my grandchildren to grow up knowing. Not fear. Not control. But respect. Because love without respect isn't love at all.